Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It's Francis, and today I have Nicholas Slayton on. Nicholas works, contributor to Task and Purpose, but you kind of work all over the place. As you said, you're a writer who works in a bar, so I imagine that's where most of your stories kind of come and go from. So how are you doing today, Nick?
I'm good. I'm just probably in need of another pot of coffee.
That is generally how it kind of works for us. Whether writer or military, the finger touched power up is a big pot of black coffee. So I'm bringing Nick. I brought you on because I wanted to talk about a couple of stories. One of the big ones, though, for Task and Purpose is titled "Why Modern Technology Hasn't Rendered Trench Warfare Useless in Ukraine." And, with the conventional war of Russia invading Ukraine, there's been a lot of, the military hot takes have been just all over the place. We've been getting, here's why tanks are no longer, a thing to use because we watch the Russians be really bad with tank warfare, which, if you follow an actual doctrine and you do tank warfare correctly, you don't have tank warfare problems. But, Russia is going to Russia. And so we also have, this about trench warfare, which I feel like a lot of people, they saw those really striking photos of the, blasted forests, of splintered tree trunks and everything, which, are very reminiscent of Band of Brothers, or any photos that you would see from World War I, where, trench warfare is you just dig in and they try to kill the shit out of you. And, this, as we kind of see, as technology advances and everything, we always think like, well, the next war, these things aren't going to be useful because we have lasers and we have guided bombs and we have this, that, and the other thing. But like when we talk about those things, when we say we really mean the United States. And to be fair, not 100% sure a lot of that, high tech stuff is really going to work. If my 20 years in the military is anything to go off of, it's that just because you have a runaway military budget doesn't mean that the shit that military budget is buying is any good for anybody.
Whoa,
Nate has talked a few
work?
times because Nate used to be an infantry officer and talked about the really expensive radios that they end up sending over and that. They're like, cool, great. They're going to stay over there in that box because they're complete shit. They don't work. They're too heavy. And we have perfectly fine working comms now. There's no reason to take those out other than a contractor managed to grease a wheel to get, a $300 a unit contract to send all these things over to Iraq. So, when our technology advancement really only can go so far. And it is still like, you still have the dirt. And the ground is the best thing that you can have to save you from, incoming fire.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane. Like they can stop anything.
Right.
If you dig yourself deep enough, you're fine.
And the military bases, if you weren't in the military, you didn't see a lot of them. We had things called HESCO barriers. HESCO barriers were these big wire and canvas baskets. That were about, waist to chest high, depending on the kind that you're getting, reinforced by these cages, and then you just dumped dirt into because they would stop everything. They would stop any kind of bullet that comes at you. It'll stop an RPG because it's just dirt. It's loose. It's, dirt that is loose so that when something hits it, the kinetic energy, the impact is spread across the wall and in through all of this loose dirt. Kind of like the way that ceramic plate works. It takes the hit and then it distributes the energy across the plate itself rather than, being something that punches through. So it's very interesting that, from my perspective as a soldier who never saw anything like this in Iraq and Afghanistan. We did not trench. We didn't have to. We built T-walls. We built the other, the HESCO barriers, but we did not have large-scale trenching. And thank God, because it was mostly rock and mountain where I was. But, I'm curious, Nick, where did you start kind of going down the pathway for this story?
Yeah. I've been sort of been writing about and following the news from Ukraine. Obviously, in the States, I'm not over there right now, but I'd seen all this stuff about, when we were doing stuff with the howitzers or the HIMARS, you'd see sort of these attacks and you'd see these trench lines, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. They are digging in on these like fields or outskirts of these cities because, we're having this massive artillery warfare. Like, that's why all these cities are getting leveled. And then when these photos came out of Bakhmut, I apologies, my Ukrainian is terrible. I believe it's Bakhmut. The ones that looked like World War One, I was like, wait, it's this serious. And so I started digging in, looking at it, and basically, in the Donbass, Bakhmut, sort of in the Donetsk region in the east, since 2015, basically, there's been a static trench war along the front lines. 100 miles or so of front lines where people might be a block away or a mile away, but they have these trenches dug in because they've just been in this low level war of attrition. And right now is sort of Ukraine's counteroffensive in the south and in the east has sort of come through. Russia's meanwhile sort of trying to do an advancement straight through the Donbass into Bakhmut, trying to take Bakhmut. And so we're seeing basically, instead of just low-level conflict, two big armies, both on the offensive, charging in this one space, and as much, artillery and high-tech stuff as they got, soldiers there are just like, well, it's going to dig a trench, fortify it, and mostly be safe. And it's working for the most part.
Yeah, I feel like there's probably not really a grand understanding of just how like artillery and HIMARS and these things kind of work. Yes, it's meant to kill and destroy, but it's also meant to really suppress. You don't want to pop your head up and go run around in your tanks when there's a shitload of stuff exploding all around you. But the beauty of the trench is that it's very basic. It's you dig a trench line. There's not much like to it. There are ways that you can improve it. There's ways that you can make it so that the trenches are safer. But like really, what it comes down to is like as long as you have people in a place, that's yours. Hey, we're here. We put our flag here. This is the Donbass area is ours. We're Russian, and we're going to dig these trenches. And if you want this back, you are going to have to either go around or go through our trenches. And if you can't go around, you got to go through. And you cannot easily go through a trench line because you, the person who wants to go through it, has to stand up, run across a field, get in a tank, get in an airplane or something along those lines, and just kind of run across and hope you don't die, and then get into the trench and then kill everybody in the trench. Not an easy.
Yeah, the hope you don't die bit is the key element there.
You and 50 of your closest friends running across the field. Half of you get mowed down by machine gun fire, and then the rest of you jump into the trench. But half of you died there, so with luck, maybe you're gonna take them. But you're on their home turf at this point. So trench warfare is very simple,
and it's like,
but also it's just a very it's a simple solution that has very complex counter solutions to it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we were talking about the tech elements here. Like everything you just said, how to take a trench, you could have basically said describing World War One. Like that hasn't changed in 104 years. Obviously the artillery is more. We have the drones, which can give you a better, observation recon. You can maybe drop a bomb off that. But guys in World War One in fighter planes were just dropping grenades into trenches then. And it's, basically to break through that, you need a really combined force coordinated push, artillery, cavalry, armor, air force, which technically Russia could pull off. It could break Ukrainian trenches. It's just that they have no doctrine. They're inept. The guys who are fighting around Bakhmut, a lot of it's Wagner group, but it's also, a lot of these untrained guys who they've called up in the fall. So it's, Ukraine's able to basically hold on and dig in because Russia's too inept.
It really does go, and as I said earlier, the discussions about, tank warfare, you can't judge like, well, that's the end of X, Y, and Z because we watched the Russians fail at it. The Russians are just bad at stuff, and which is very insulting considering the last couple of decades when we've been told about how great the Russian military is and how strong they are and how much ass and armor and artillery that they got, and then you just watch them kind of get fed into a meat grinder that is Ukraine. Now, to be fair, we are also supplying Ukraine with a lot of really high tech stuff. presumably for free. I imagine. I don't really know if we're gonna come back and say, hey, by the way, you owe us for a couple of HIMARS systems. But it is a it is. If I was Russian, I'd be embarrassed, honestly. If I was a Russian general, but I don't really think those guys are issued any amount of shame. So it's just pride and stupidity.
If they do, they just disappear. It's okay.
So.
Yeah.
Exactly. The whole point is just to try to live until retirement where you can leave Russia forever. And hopefully not find yourself getting jumping out of a window with somebody's help.
Or enjoying a nice taste of polonium.
So we have, and you mentioned these trenches have been here for a while. Like, these aren't new trench lines because this war against Russian separatists has been going on since 2014, since the 2014 invasion, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's basically, but when the fighting was started in 2014, we saw a lot more like bigger attacks, not quite outright warfare, but bigger attacks. And then they did the Minsk II agreement in February 2015, which basically wasn't really a ceasefire. It just banned a lot of the heavier weapons. So everyone kind of settled in their trenches. Some were a couple yards apart, some were wider, and they've just sort of been shooting at each other, snipers, assaults, maybe not, your grand charge across no man's land, but smaller unit versions of that since basically for 8 years now. 7, 8 years.
I've been reading Storm of Steel, which is all about a German in the trenches during World War I, and it is it's very surprising to see. Obviously warfare has improved, and a drone can come and drop a bomb into a trench, but those bombs are only so you only have so many drones, so many operators, so many bombs that are of a certain side, like. You can drop a grenade into a trench line, but it's not going to destroy the trench line. You can shell a trench line. It's not going to destroy it. Everybody's just going to kind of duck down. And unless you get one directly in the trench, you're not going to do anything. And also, if they're smart, they're building the trenches to be zigzag so that, it will break up any pressure waves that would happen, that would go down the trench lines. Like, the great thing about trench lines is we have doctrines. Everybody's got doctrine for it because we've been doing it for more than a century at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the photos that came out, last month that really sort of caught everyone's eyes, that were full on like retro World War One. They were like a little cruder trenches, maybe a few logs here and there, rough digs. But like, I've looked at some videos and photos from the last few months where the fighting really escalated in Bakhmut, and like people going downstairs into giant like underground spaces. It's all there's like fully paneled walls. One unit even built a sauna in their trench, which is nuts to me. But that's kind of just like shows how fortified these things are. Of course, getting shelled can break up the lines, and it's wet, it's cold, it's muddy, it's snowing, so that's still an issue. So you can make it nice and high tech, put a sauna in, but then you got to still deal with the rain and the snow.
You still gotta feed people. Now, how long are they staying? Like, if I'm an average Ukrainian troop, how long am I staying in a trench line before I get rotated back for rest and resupply?
I haven't been able to find the exact like across the board line on that. I think some units were sort of moving in for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. The fighters who've been there, long term for the last few years before the full war broke out, they were staying there longer simply because they were trying to stay where they lived. And I think it's starting to change now simply because, like I was saying, we've had sort of these trenches for years, but now we're seeing the full mobilization, the full sides of each army sort of get to that line. Once Ukrainians sort of push people back from Kiev, from the advance in Kiev, and then they've been doing their recent, efforts to recapture parts around Kherson and Kharkiv. Now we're seeing sort of the full force hit that, and that's sort of changing the game of the trenches right now.
Yeah, as well as logistics, I imagine. Like, how do you resupply these trench lines? I mean, you can't drone drop a bunch of MREs into, well, not yet, I assume, but
somebody wants to pitch that, I'm sure.
Look, I've seen the U.S. Army shove stuff out of the back of a C-17 and it land perfectly fine. Of course, the problem is that we're not always 100% on hitting our targets, so certainly don't want our MREs to end up in the Russian hands. Although, fuck it, if we're going to back them up, maybe that'll help us out, but. These logistical concerns, they have to be, again, it's all, as you mentioned the thing, it's all analog. There is no digital, like, you can't you can't digital war your way out of this. When it comes to, we have soldiers physically on the ground with a flag in the ground saying this is ours, and until you like remove them, you're not going to be able to say it's ours because they're gone.
Yeah, I mean, oh, you got a bunch of guys up in the front lines. How do we get them food and cold weather gear? Because it's against winter's here, basically. You got to basically drive out to the very back of the lines where the roads are still there if they haven't been shelled out of oblivion. Then you got to carry it by hand into the trenches, through all that whole network, which also dodging sniper bullets, dodging artillery, dodging drone strikes. Yeah, it's not exactly easy, and that's kind of a thing. Like like you were saying, high tech elements like HIMARS, like precision targeting. That's not going to totally change a war, but it's going to help on, say, urban warfare elements or wider, open field charging advancing like we saw in the fall. When you hit the trenches, that really is negated because people got to just move by foot, by hand. It's weird. It's just you see this stuff and it's like, oh, wow, we can give you guys a Starlink connection, and these guys are on the computers guiding their drones to go guide a missile into the Russian lines, but they are still lugging back and forth through the mud. It's bizarre. It's like on a certain level, it's just strange mix of eras.
Yeah, I think that a lot of it probably has to do with the most war that people have really paid attention to in the last 20 years, of course, has been America and Iraq and Afghanistan. And to a certain extent, also, I keep up with various, the what's going on in Philippines, what's going on, in Southeast Asia. There's all kinds of people that are, fighting back. There's guerrilla warfare happening. There's, fleets and fleets of technicals. But this is the first time that we've really seen somebody like, this isn't a city to city kind of thing or a village to village. This is large swaths of land that if you want it, you have to come through us. And, like I said, in Afghanistan and Iraq, it was about securing cities, securing villages, doing door to door. It's easy to say, hey, we've got a sniper in that building. Here's a grid coordinate. Hey, artillery, can you take that down? Or can you bring an A-10 through or drop a JDAM or whatever? That's a precision thing. It hits it. Cool. We've taken the target out. We can move on. All of that is completely useless in a situation where it's like, here's just a big open field. Here's a trench line. We can see it. We can target it. We can, hit close to it. We can probably hit inside of it, but it's so long and it's so big and it's so well supplied that we're not able to punch through without, heavy losses on our own side. That's really kind of what I think. That's why probably a lot of people are surprised by it, myself included. Like, I saw those pictures, I was like, wow, that's exact like everybody else. It looks exactly like World War I, but this is a war that we haven't seen in a long time. This force on force conventional war over large tracts of land. And this is the way that you do it. Like, the patrols that we did in Iraq and Afghanistan wouldn't keep this. The, having some kind of network of informants or anything wouldn't keep this. Having people just driving around in gun trucks wouldn't keep this. You have to say, we're here, we're dug in. Again, if you want this, you have to physically excise us from this land. And it is, I'm very glad I never had to fight this war. I'm glad that my war included a Pizza Hut that I could go to. I'm glad that my war had a nice soft bed for me to sleep in and an air conditioner. So this, looking at all of that stuff, it is unfathomable to me. And it looks like even your last quote is from somebody who's just like, I'm a soldier and I don't understand how you do this.
The worst place it could be in my mind right now is a trench in Ukraine, especially as this winter. And to that point, we haven't seen a force-on-force war like this since, I want to say, Iran, Iraq, Like, people dig trenches. They do it all the time. They did that in the anti-ISIS fights with the YPJ, and, they did that in the Yugoslav wars. But, we just haven't seen something like this. And I see those photos, and I still, my mind can't wrap around it, And I wrote this story. I'm still struggling to grasp the scale of this.
And the Iran-Iraq War, and if you don't know much about it, highly recommend you go to Lions Led by Donkeys and listen to Joe's series on the Iran-Iraq War, because it is absolutely insane. They fucking electrified an entire swamp and murdered.
I was just gonna mention that the most Looney Tunes ass, like mass casualty thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, just fucking run a bunch of generators into the swamp and electrocute it like we're in a goddamn video game or something.
Modern problems require modern solutions.
Exactly. And you know, one thing I will say about being in the American military is that it, for the longest time, it didn't really seem to want your innovation. As they went along, it kind of did. You know, the different things to defeat IEDs were mostly invented by soldiers on the ground, because they're the ones who are saying, "Hey, I can see this problem. Let's put a rhino mount on the front to mimic an engine for the ones that are, you know, targeted by heat that go off like that." But you know, the people on the ground are always going to be the ones who are shifting doctrine and coming up with new things. And while these trenches are new, while the trenches are not new, I'm sure that there's still doctrine that's being created, being changed, being done all up and down these trench lines on both sides about, like, how do we do this? What are the things that we can do to do these? And, you know, I hate to say it, but I mean, from the perspective of somebody who was in war and was in the army for 20 years and, you know, reads about conflicts past and present, it's very interesting to see kind of what's going on. I really wish it didn't involve Russia being huge dickheads and like hundreds of thousands of people dying on either side. But, you know, at least we're getting to see what our HIMARS can do in action, I suppose.
Oh, and they can do a lot. Yeah.
And to let people know also, we don't really get, like, the HIMARS are not new. Like, that's not new technology. Those things are 20-ish years old. Like, we still haven't given Ukraine our biggest and bestest kind of stuff. We're not even, like, running Abrams over there. It's like, here's some fucking awesome tanks that will cut open any armor that Russia comes at you with. And, you know, we haven't really needed to. It's like, look, we got some Cold War stuff. You guys want that? Cool. You can kill all the Russians you want with this.
Oh, yeah.
It turns out.
We give them the Vampire kit, which is basically a build-your-own technical. I don't even need that. They're building great technicals. You know, you and I are both fans of that style of war.
Put a gun on it.
So cool. You know, what was it? Someone put, like, this is a great bit of high and low tech elements. You know, they took, like, an old 80s pickup truck and just put, like, a remote-controlled machine gun on it. It's like, oh, cool. Here's a drone on an old car. Sure, why not? But, like, on the trenches, the thing that, you know, for one thing that's really sort of big on this war, that I've been thinking about a lot, is that Ukraine is massive. This war is huge. You know, the front lines are hundreds of miles long. And everything we're seeing, you know, these images that came out, that's all, like, we're being allowed to see that, essentially. Like, you know, all the videos of a HIMARS strike, or, you know, this drone footage of someone dropping a grenade in a Russian trench line, like, that's, you know, people posting their wins. No one's posting their L's. And so we might be seeing some innovation, some grand thing. Maybe there is a giant no man's land charge. We're just not seeing it, so we don't have the exact full picture yet at the moment.
Yeah, it is, as you mentioned, you got to take what you're seeing with a grain of salt at any given time, because that is, you and I are not immune to propaganda, no matter how much we love to watch that shit. So it is a, as I said, it's just an interesting kind of conflict that's happening, because, again, we haven't seen anything like this on this scale and in this kind of way since Iran and Iraq, and we didn't have TikTok videos back then, so we really get to enjoy watching shit get shot down in real time.
Oh yeah, the HIMARS fan cams.
Yeah. All right, so I want to shift a little bit, but we are going to stay with trenches a little bit. We're going to talk about Vietnam War and how the 4th Infantry managed to step on their own dicks yet again. Nicholas, have you ever been to Fort Carson?
I have not. Next time I go to Colorado, I may stop by, though.
It is a lovely base. I spent a week there. It's got great. The Air Force Academy is out there. That's great to take a look at. The scenery is wonderful, and 4th Infantry Division are the ones who like captured Saddam Hussein. So they have this museum, and I love military. Every time on a military base, I go to the museum to see like what like low tech kind of shit do you guys have going on here? Because some museums are really shitty. Like the Carson one was kind of like they could use a little bit more money, but they have the styrofoam plug to the spider hole on display there. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was really cool. Like I walked in there, and there's just like at the front desk, there's like one like buck sergeant who's just like, yeah, hey, sign the thing, take a look. You know, if you got any questions, let me know. And it's like, all right, 4th Infantry Division, World War II, Vietnam, blah blah blah. You know, all their stuff, and then it's like, oh, here's the spider hole plug. That we have behind glass. So I love like I said, I love military museums. The ones at Leonard Wood are phenomenal. If you ever get a chance, if you're ever stuck in the middle of Missouri for whatever reason, you should go see those. So you know, all about the military honoring its past. But this one is the 4th Infantry Division staged a massive physical challenge honoring its past and accidentally tear gassed itself.
Yeah.
So
this is amazing.
So what is this thing that they're trying to what is this thing that happened in Vietnam that they're trying to do here?
Yeah, so 50 years prior in November, this is, you know, November 23rd or 22nd, so, 23rd, my mistake, 23rd this year, so, you know, right before Thanksgiving, there's the 55-year anniversary of the Battle of Dak To in Vietnam. You know, it was a massive, you know, 20-day long fight. 4th Infantry Division was there, and there was this big fight over Hill 875, you know, and that lasted several days, you know, and 4th Infantry was trying to, you know, gain control of the hills, massive uphill fight, you know, and so this was the division's been sort of doing these sort of recreations of some of their big fights, like Battle of Herkin Forest, D-Day Landing, and then they did this, and it was.
And I'm wondering where they did they have to go out and dig a bunch of trenches? Like, these trenches look fairly new. Just looking at the front picture, I can see score marks in the ground, so it looks like they recently, it was just like, hey, 6 months from now, we're going to want to run these guys through a bunch of trenches, so let's start getting the backhoes out now. But also there's vegetation in them, so I don't know. I don't know what's going on here.
Well, this had been sort of announced in advance. You know, they said, hey, we're going to be doing this for the anniversary of this battle. You know, so they sort of prepped the area for it. I'm not quite sure if it was all entirely new stuff or just part of it, but they did some new work for it. And, you know, the plan was, it was a division-wide physical fitness challenge for the holidays to celebrate this anniversary. It's about a little more of just under a 2.5 mile course. They'd be going through trenches, you know, they'd be dragging tires. They'd have to carry their commanders or sergeants if they got injured. And
as you did in Vietnam, carrying tires up the hill.
Listen, it's essential work, as far as I understand it. But yeah, so they had to do this, and there's videos and photos of it, and I'm not going to lie, it's kind of nuts. You'd have, you know, thousands of soldiers just swarming this hill. I've never seen anything like that. The problem was, they have this course, and they need to make the barriers for it. So what they did is they, you know, did some barbed wire, and they also released CS gas to mark the boundaries. CS gas is tear gas.
Which, like, but they're also released, like, you'd think, why not just release regular, you know, gas, or regular white smoke?
Oh, and they have that on the course. That was in the course, in the trenches even, to recreate sort of the, you know, simulation of, like, explosions and artillery and everything like that. So I just, like, I spent a lot of time, as I said, I spent a lot of time in the Army. And, like, I was never infantry, so I never had this, like, you know, mental block on, like, what if we did something but it made sense? Like, the infantry doesn't have that that stage in their brains. They're just like, what if we just did this, and how can we make it cooler? Well, we have a bunch of gas grenades. Let's go ahead and throw those. So it doesn't really make sense. Like, I can see that the spokesperson says it wasn't intended to interfere with the formations, but, like, again, why do you have CS gas out there in the first place? I could not get a good answer for that, and I think it's just because. But here's the thing, like you were saying, they spent months preparing for this. This was announced. They told the troops there was going to be CS gas to mark the boundaries. They dug those trenches. They did all this stuff. They set all of it up, and they did not seem to account for wind, because
so the soldiers that were running up knew that the CS gas was going to be present, and the idea was, if I guess like, if you start to feel like kind of, your eyes are start watering, you start to get that gas, that CS gas feeling, move the opposite direction and you won't be near. But again, some engineering tape, maybe some like caution tape or something to just say, stay within these boundaries, don't walk over there, I think probably would have worked a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, if you already have a barbed wire, I feel like that sort of does the trick.
Right.
But again, I was not involved in the planning of this, I don't know. But also, yeah, it was okay. So yeah, if you stray off course, you hit that, you turn back the other way, that makes sense on some level, right? But the wind shifted directions, and it just got a large portion. Again, we're talking like roughly 8,000 soldiers from, enlisted, junior enlisted, all the way up to commanders were taking part of it. So it's a division-wide thing. And so everybody got hit with this.
Yeah, and CS isn't, CS out in the open isn't as bad as the gas chambers were that we ended up having to do a few times. But, it's, I wouldn't want to be around it. It gets into your clothes and then you can't get it out. So even with the warnings is, hey, we're going to be popping CS gas, I really feel like there should have been somebody to raise their hand and say, what if we didn't do that? And instead just use, like, if you need boundaries marked, you're like, well, the white smoke is going to be, is going to show you, it's going to simulate the explosions. It's going to simulate war. Fine, cool, whatever. Over on the boundaries, throw up yellow smoke or purple smoke. Hey, you see purple smoke? You're going too close to the edges there. You need to bring it back over to the middle. Too easy, right? Just go with a visual thing.
Yeah,
I do like that. I do like that they specifically say in here is like, well, the soldiers were told to wear eye protection, as if that was going to help against, as if like the protective glasses, which do not seal to your face whatsoever.
I was going to ask that. I've never worn those, but my understanding is, yeah, that's not going to help you.
Yeah, the normal eye protection that they give you are they're glasses that are shatterproof. They'll stop. They've got a low grade kind of shrapnel stop. It's it will keep your eyes protected from shit that's flying through the air. It does not. Now, maybe if you got the really high speed ones that have the like the goggles that you put on your helmet, but none of these guys were wearing helmets or anything. Like, they're all wearing their black watch caps. Some of them have PT belts on. Some of them look makeshift, like they just tied some engineering tape around themselves. I don't know what's going on with that, but it really like I understand the we want to do what we can to honor our past and everything, but really feels like you're kind of taking it out of it without at least like one guy on a machine gun shooting over their heads.
Yeah.
If we're going to take away everything else, you don't got to run with a weapon. You don't have to run with your helmet and your kit on. Fine. At least get one guy with a 60 shooting, I don't want to make it, 10 feet above their heads is fine. Just to give them that, like, ooh, there's some sounds happening here.
Oh, they have the sounds. They simulated all that stuff. Artillery, gunfire, and again, you running uphill. It seems, listen, on a pure obstacle course level, it actually sounds kind of fun. It's just yeah. Why would you do this? And they put up all these nice videos and photos on DVids and everything like that. But then the tear gas thing we found out through TikTok from a soldier who participated, and some of the comments from people who were there was like, "Oh, that was amazing! It was wild, except for the tear gas," or "I enjoyed it." And it's just, listen, adrenaline rush. I get it, but yeah, I don't want to be tear gas. I don't know why anyone. I would be so mad if I just saw like a wave of tear gas smokes or whatever coming my way because of a wind.
Well, and even the tear gas, like I said, it probably wasn't too bad, but it's also just something that you weren't expecting. But you know what? If you're charging a hill, you're gonna have to you got to expect the unexpected, right? So get over yourself, soldiers. You're gonna get gas sometimes. I guess sometimes you just gotta gas yourself.
And just don't forget to flush your eyes, get that stuff out. If you find yourself getting tear gassed, deal with that right away. Don't use water; that will not help.
Yeah. Go on to the course with like a bottle of milk and just start dumping it in your eyes while you're out there. It'll be fine. Or take your protective mask. See, that would have been even cooler if they're just like, take your protective mask. We're gonna throw some CS gas out there. Maybe you'll get hit by it, or maybe you won't. See, Nick, this is why they need to hire us as consultants to come up with like way better ideas than whatever the fuck they're coming up with. Like, if you really want to tear gas some soldiers, let's make it a training environment. Like, really,
Yeah.
like,
As soon as you hit this one trench line halfway up a hill, boom, we release the gas.
yeah, you hit it and just drop a couple of them, pop them in a trench line. Oh, we got down. We gotta put the thing on, and we gotta keep running. But I don't know. Somebody will probably die of it or get heat casualty or something. I don't know. There's always some reason why we can't do anything like really fun in the Army.
These guys had fun, apparently.
It's and you can't take that away from troops. Troops will find fun because there's nothing fun about being in the Army than what fun you make of it. So you have to kind of, do what you can to make it a better world and a better experience for yourself, even if you're like forcing yourself to smile through it. Myself at the age of like almost 40 now would not want to do this whatsoever. However, 23-year-old me, I would have been fucking rock hard for all of this. So, make sure if you're going to do something like this, make sure that that you certainly do have the young, dumb, and full of cum troops, because otherwise you're going to get the PAO guy that's going to go, my stuff's stinky now. And that's me, and I don't like being there.
That's fair.
All right, one more from you, Nick. This one hits close to my heart. U.S. Navy fined for acts of software piracy.
Oh God.
I'm going to officially say right now to the 7 feds that monitor this, I have never been accused of nor convicted of doing any of this, and everything that we're going to talk about going forward is all hypothetical. Anyway, so when I was in the Army and in PAO, we stole the shit out of software constantly. I'm surprised that anybody has finally gotten caught for it at this point.
Yeah, This case is really interesting because it does seem to be like almost a service-wide breach of a contract, essentially. And this was a lawsuit that had been going on since 2016. Essentially, it's a little nuts, and it's a lot of back and forth. Appeals going back to the claims court. It's very strange. So essentially, the Navy worked with this German company, Bit Management Software GmbH, and they were basically making a sort of a virtual reality 3D rendering system. Navy licensed a couple copies. They negotiated all that, and while they were using it, they apparently just downloaded it and copied hundreds of versions of this software. And so Bit Management sued. And after a long legal battle, the federal court said, "Yeah, you guys pirated it."
Now, I'm in the military's defense. A lot of times what ends up happening is sometimes we get software and we're not given maybe the best instructions on how to use it or how to install it. Maybe we don't get enough licenses. Maybe the SIC shop who's supposed to put all this stuff onto computers doesn't really know what they're doing. It wouldn't be the first time. So it's very funny that anybody got caught for this. But this 3D, bit management, this seems like it's probably a bit bigger than us passing around a bunch of discs that had Adobe Photoshop on it. And to be fair, that was a Photoshop that was from like 2008. So not really. I don't think anybody's going to come kick down doors about that.
Yeah, this isn't like a LimeWire situation,
right? But it should have been. Because there is, like, when I was in Iraq and I was in Afghanistan, they had on the Nipper net, they were on both of the Nippers, they had an entire like place dedicated to movies and TV shows and games that you could access and you could watch. And it always seemed like every time a new group like rotated in, people would come, the SIC shop would come in and they'd be like, "Hey, what do you got on your hard drives that we can load up onto here?" The amount of I worked night shift in Afghanistan for about 4 months. So, 12 hours of night shift and not a whole lot happens, especially when you're on the main base. And I watched a shitload of movies that were, I am sure, not procured legally. Same way with all the DVDs that we would buy at the bazaars there too. 5 movies on one DVD that are all 240p or so.
I love a bootleg DVDs.
To steal is to be a soldier, to be honestly. It's what we do. It's what comes natural to us. If I need that thing, I'm going to get it. And if you're not going to give me an easy way to procure it, like if I can't fill out a form, I'm going to steal it probably if I really, really need it. That's just the way it goes. So I'm sorry, Navy, for being the one group that was so dumb that they managed to get busted doing this. But the track record of the Navy lately, I'm not really that surprised.
Hey, I mean, not many service branches can say they actually did piracy, just not for fun, Jolly Rogers kind.
Right. If anybody is going to do piracy, I guess it should be the Navy. Or the Navy should be going after like Somali pirates who are downloading like the latest episode of South Park or something and sharing it on their Google Drive. I
mean, the one win, I guess, for the Navy in this case is that the original lawsuit for damages, was up to, they sought $600 million. Bit Management did, and now the Navy's only on the hook for, after this weird back and forth, is only about $150,400. So.
Which is no money. Like it's not even a respectable amount to be fined. You expect like no, go after like if your fining isn't breaching $1 million, you're not really scratching anybody.
Yeah, there's some damages that still need to be determined. Last I checked, but I don't think it's going to be close to the $600 million that Bit Management sought.
No, you're not going to get that kind. But also, what, $600 million? Yeah, that's not. The 150,000, that's maybe about the best that you can hope for. And you're welcome, Bit Management. Nicholas, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me at taskandpurpose.com. I'm a contributing editor there. I'm also a freelance journalist elsewhere at places like the New Republic and the Daily Beast, but mainly Task and Purpose.
Yeah, go read Nicholas's non-military stuff too. There's a lot of you have a lot of really good articles about LA that I saw. So really, really great stuff. So I appreciate you coming on. I look forward to bringing you on more to talk about your Task and Purpose stories. Everybody who's listening, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next week.